To all my moms moving on, I have something amazing for you. If you're ready to move on from your engagement ring, the experts at Worthy can help you turn it into cash, fast and risk-free. Worthy does all the work, and their competitive auctions get you the best deal possible. Over 45,000 people have already moved on with Worthy. Are you ready to move on too? Visit worthy.com/moms to get an extra $100 when your jewelry sells for over $1,500. That's worthy.com/moms for a special bonus offer just for the Moms Moving On community. Divorce in particular is one of those things that, you hear about, you read about, you get a lawyer, you go through the process. But as you and I both know, you're not really divorced until you've learned to emotionally separate yourself from this person, which no judge, no lawyer, no mediator, nobody can do for you except for yourself.
So true. And it's the hardest part. It's the hardest part.
Welcome back to another Moms Moving On. I think this is the first time I have a three-peat offender on the podcast. We've got none other than your girl, Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, the divorce survival guide, my divorce survival guide. Also, very proficient in all things high conflict. And I'm not saying that to even be funny. You are the person when someone says to me, I think I'm in a really toxic relationship. I don't know if I should stay or I should go. I say, well, that's interesting. Call Kate Anthony because that is your girl. Unfortunately, you've been through it, but fortunately, you've come out the other side okay, and you're helping the rest of us. Kate, thank you so much for being here. You're a coach, you're a friend, you're a soon-to-be best-selling author. What else can I say about you?
From your lips to God's ears, my friend.
Yes. I'll never forget. Bella Gandhi came on the podcast and was like, I'm so excited you're going to be a New York Times bestseller. And hasn't happened yet, but any day now.
She's what is she called? The psychotic optimist.
Yes.
Our friend,
exactly.
the psychotic optimist.
Yes. Bella,
That's what she
love
calls
you.
herself. I'm not calling her psychotic. I love Bella. She calls herself the psychotic optimist.
Well, speaking of psycho, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back on with me.
Honey, thank you so much for having me. I adore you, and I'm always happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
I love our conversations because I think we're very much on the same page with a lot of things, but divorce in particular is one of those things that, you hear about, you read about, you get a lawyer, you go through the process. But as you and I both know, you're not really divorced until you've learned to emotionally separate yourself from this person, which no judge, no lawyer, no mediator, nobody can do for you except for yourself. So
true. And it's the hardest part. It's the hardest part, because especially with someone high conflict, I was just saying on my retreat, I was just saying to the women, they're going to be flicking that rope in your face. They're going to flick it in your face. And it's really hard for you not to pick it up, especially when it's being flicked in your face. Right?
Well, but that's the thing. It's sometimes it's not even flicked in your face. It's like, here you go. I got you a nice little present. And you're like, oh, you're being nice. Thanks.
Oh, you're being nice.
And then the box explodes in your face.
Boom. Yes. Yeah. You have to be so careful. You have to be it's like walking a tightrope. And that's why I always say, and I think you and I agree on this, that it really is best to parallel parent first. Like no matter what kind of a relationship you want to have down the line, if you really want to, somewhere down the line have an amicable relationship with your ex, that's wonderful. Number one. Number two, it takes two people to have that. So be careful. And number three, the best way to start is with full separation, parallel parenting. Be as separate as you possibly can, because you have to learn to individuate, and you've got to get your confidence back. You've got to get all of those, because at the end of the day, when you've been in a high conflict, now I like to call them, most high conflict is actually domestic violence. It's rooted in abuse, right? High conflict is when two people, high conflict is War of the Roses. They were high conflict because they were both equally abusive to each other. But if you guys remember, I'm aging myself. You guys remember, you've seen that movie, Michelle?
Yes, of course.
Okay, good. I was just making
Mom,
sure.
I mean, we're not that far apart
No,
here,
we're
okay?
not that far apart. But you know, when it's one person being high conflict, that's abuse. That's not that's not high conflict, right? And so when the abuse is following you into your divorce, it's your job at this point to really put up as many boundaries as possible, separate as clearly as sort of definitively as you possibly can, because you're always like, when you leave that door open, you have left it open for, for them to come back in.
Exactly. And you are absolutely not going to break the marital cycle of communication, codependency, violence, whatever is
Nope,
happening,
not a
unless
chance.
you set up a situation where you are parallel parenting, staying in your own lane and saying, this is mine, this is yours, see you somewhere down the line.
Hmm.
Because the people who have been victimized, Kate, and correct me if I'm wrong, they want everything to be like fine and copacetic. And I'm just going to be amenable and amicable and kind so you can be kind to me. And that often never works out as planned.
Well, that's right. Because, like, did that work in your marriage? Right? I mean, and that's what we think. We think, well, we're getting divorced, so now we can do things differently. And that is the case for many people. Um, and if you've been in an abusive relationship, that they will likely continue that through, because abusers need to abuse. That's just the way it is. And so they will continue that dynamic. They'll continue to try and push those boundaries well into your divorce. And your job is to set really, really, really clear boundaries that can't be violated. And I can hear a lot of people being like, but I try, and then he does this, and then he does that, and he does that. And, my answer to that is like, yeah, that's what he does. That's who he is. And it's one of the hardest things to, like, comprehend, that you actually have the power
Hmm.
to hold boundaries in the face of someone whose job it is to push against them. You do.
Yes.
It's harder, it is more challenging, and all of those things, but you can still do it. You can insist on communicating through a co-parenting app. You can ask your attorney to, if you have evidence, you can talk to your attorney about perhaps getting a judge to mandate the use of a co-parenting app. That's a great boundary. Um, sometimes that's a little bit more difficult, but you can always just say, "Hey, anything about the kids, I'm just gonna put in the co-parenting app." And when they text you, you take it to the co-parenting app and you
Yep.
answer it. You can screenshot the text and put it in the co-parenting app. And then, right? Because people don't like to they don't like to abuse people when they think they're being watched, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so there are ways. The hardest part about this is the internal work that you need to do
Yeah.
to become the kind of person who can hold those boundaries.
Well, and also it's the hardest part is making the choice to